First and foremost, thank you everyone for being here. I know that there are plenty of other activities you could be doing on a Sunday morning, particularly my friends who are on the West Coast. So I do appreciate you getting up early and being here with me today and coming out to hear my presentation. I have to admit, I am a little nervous. This is my first presentation outside of an academic classroom, but I can't think of a more fitting conference to present at, surrounded by so many wonderful people and baseball enthusiasts. And I can't think of a more fitting topic to present on. Rachel Balkovec has been and continues to be a mentor, a role model, and someone I will always consider a dear friend. I first came across Rachel in 2012. I was flipping through the pages of a Baseball America magazine, and I came across this young woman who the St. Louis Cardinals just made the first female strength and conditioning intern in professional baseball history. And I said to myself, this has got to be the most remarkable woman on the entire planet. I have to find out who this woman is, and I have to follow her career as it continues. And sure enough, I've done that, and it's been such a joy and pleasure following her career and seeing all that she's accomplished. I have had the distinct privilege of speaking with Rachel on multiple occasions, and those are certainly conversations and memories that I will always hold near and dear. Now, before we get going today, I have to extend a heartfelt thank you and appreciation to Leslie, or Dr. H. If it wasn't for you, I would not have this incredible opportunity to be here this morning. So thank you for believing in me and giving me this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Okay, so this first slide, I'm just going to give a general overview of where Rachel is at currently, some of her more notable accomplishments, and then as the presentation goes on, we'll get into a little more detail of the different stages throughout her life and how she got to where she's at today. So currently, Rachel just finished her second season as the manager of the Tampa Tarpons, who are the single-A affiliate for the New York Yankees. As you can imagine, she is the first female to ever be named manager of a professional baseball organization. In 2001, she became the first female to ever coach in the Future Stars game, which is essentially the minor league equivalent of the Major League Baseball All-Star game. In 2019, the New York Yankees made her the first female hitting coach. In 2016, the Houston Astros made her the first female Latin American strength and conditioning coordinator. In 2014, the St. Louis Cardinals made her the first female strength and conditioning coordinator. And in 2012, the St. Louis Cardinals also made her the first female strength and conditioning intern. As you can see, a lot of firsts. And if history has taught us anything, it's that there'll be many more firsts in the years to come. So let's go back to where it all started. And we're going to have some fun today. So Rachel was born on July 5th, 1987 in Omaha, Nebraska, to Jim and Bonnie Balkovec. And Rachel has said constantly in many interviews, both publicly and privately, that all of her accomplishments can be traced back to Jim and Bonnie and how they raised her. The importance of work ethic was instilled in Rachel and her two sisters at a very young age, which she credits entirely to her parents. Her parents would always say to her and her two sisters, anything is possible with work. And it's actually a funny story because Jim worked for American Airlines for about 33 years. And during that time, he only missed work on 3 separate occasions. So it's clear that Rachel did not learn her work ethic on the street. It was instilled in her from a very young age by Jim and Bonnie. And Rachel has said on a couple occasions, her family, they were middle class, but they didn't have a lot of money growing up. And anything she or her sisters wanted to buy, they had to pay for with their own money. That was the rule in the Balkovec household. So Rachel and her sisters, they had jobs as early as 13 and 14. Now, when Rachel got to high school, she was being bullied quite a bit. And she pleaded with Jim and Bonnie, please go to the principal on my behalf. But Jim and Bonnie never did that. They said to Rachel, okay, you're being bullied. Now, what are you going to do about it? And while Rachel probably didn't realize it at the time, Jim and Bonnie were instilling more life lessons in her, how to stand up for yourself and how to develop thick skin, which no doubt would come in handy in the years to come. Now, in high school, Rachel was on the softball team, and her coach described her as assertive, driven, she never complained, and she demanded excellence for herself and others. However, Rachel also had a knack for wanting to control everyone and everything. And keeping that in mind, the coach thought that being a catcher would be the most ideal position for her, considering she was in every play. And that turned out to be a good spot for her, as I'll outline in the next slide. The last thing I'll note is that Rachel always had dreams of working in professional sports, but ever since she was young, the ultimate dream was she wanted to be the first female NFL kicker. And she would spend hours upon hours in the backyard kicking the field goal in between the two telephone poles. Now, clearly she's chosen a different path, but if there ever will be a female NFL kicker, it would not surprise me if it was Rachel, as history tends to repeat itself. Okay, so after Rachel graduated high school, she enrolled at Creighton University, which was right down the road for her in Omaha, Nebraska. And she was on the softball team, but she developed something called the yips. And for those that might not be aware, the yips are essentially where you cannot throw the ball to the intended target. Baseball historians might recall Chuck Knobloch or Rick Ankiel. So Rachel thought she needed a change. So she transferred to the University of New Mexico, where she'd be a catcher on the team from 2007 to 2008. However, the yips came back. Now, very maturely, Rachel came to the conclusion, I can no longer help my team on the ball field in a playing capacity. So what can I do to help my ball club off the field? And as she told me, she was an average softball player who found solace in the weight room. That was her place to shine. She would motivate and push her teammates to be the best they could be in the weight room, with the intent of that carrying over to more wins on the field. Now, there's a common theme I'm going to talk about throughout the presentation, and that is this idea of seeds being planted. And there was 2 seeds that were planted at the University of New Mexico, which will be of significance moving forward. First was this idea of being a strength and conditioning coach. Is this something I can see myself doing? I enjoy this. I do. Can I see myself making a career out of this? And the other seed that was planted was, what's this idea of professional baseball? Minor league baseball, player development? What's this idea of these funky minor league names, these long bus rides, all these different levels? Most people think that Rachel entered professional baseball because of her love for softball, but that wasn't the reason, as I'll explain here in a second. Now, after Rachel graduated from the University of New Mexico, she became a graduate assistant at Louisiana State University, where she worked with the college athletes on campus for 2 years. And as I mentioned, those 2 seeds were planted at New Mexico, and they were solidified or cemented at Louisiana State. It was there that she came to the conclusion, okay, I'm good at this. I'm good at being a strength and conditioning coach. I enjoy it. And this is something I can see myself doing as a career. The other seed that was fulfilled was, I'm really fascinated by this process of player development in minor league baseball. So it was then that she decided, okay, I want to pursue professional baseball as a career. I also think that it helped Rachel with that decision because it was a great time to be on LSU's campus They had just won the College World Series that year. So she was surrounded by players that were entering professional baseball and the player development. So I think that definitely played a role. So this is a fun slide. So after Rachel finished her 2 years at Louisiana State, she got an internship with the Johnson City Cardinals, who at the time were the single A affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. And she had a great summer. She was named the 2012 Appalachian League Strength Coach of the Year. But what I think stood out most, and Rachel has a habit of doing this, she always goes above and beyond what the actual job description entails. And what I mean by that is she was obviously a strength and conditioning coach, but she really took on a mother and a sister role. For example, she would take the team to the grocery store and teach them how to read nutrition labels, educating them about what to put into their body, what not to put into their body. And also, she started teaching herself Spanish because she wanted to communicate with the players and feel more a part of the group. And this was so cool. So we've all heard of pin the tail on the donkey. Well, she came up with this game, which you can probably see down here on the bottom left-hand corner of the PowerPoint, pin the tail on Yadier Molina, the historic St. Louis catcher. And what she would do is she would write in English different parts of the body. And she would have the players who were predominantly Spanish speaking, she would have them place the words in English on Yadier's body. So it was a way of helping them learn English in a fun way related to baseball. Now, despite extraordinary success that summer, she received 0 offers from any professional baseball organization. However, because she started teaching herself Spanish, she got an internship in the Dominican Professional Baseball League. After that, she got an internship with the Chicago White Sox in the Arizona Fall League. And simultaneously, she was working at Arizona State University as an intern, working with the different teams on campus. Once that ended, she went back to the Chicago White Sox for another internship during the winter. However, when the winter ended, she still received no offers from professional baseball. Now, her sister, I believe it was Stephanie, came up with this idea. She told Rachel, let's just, as an experiment, see if we change your name from Rachel to Ray on your resume, being that Ray is a gender neutral name, let's see if you get any calls from organizations. And sure enough, the phone would not stop ringing. Offer after offer kept piling in. But of course, the offers came in for Ray, not Rachel. So the sequence would play out the same way every time. Somebody would call and say, hey, can I speak to Ray? And Rachel would say, this is she. And then that would be the end of the conversation. Now, fortunately, in 2014, the St. Louis Cardinals offered her the minor league strength and conditioning coordinator role, which she accepted. She did that for 2 years. And then in 2016, she became the Latin American strength and conditioning coordinator for the Houston Astros, another first. After that, she was promoted to AA Corpus Christi to be the head strength and conditioning coach, also with the Houston Astros. Now, I've been talking a lot about seeds being planted, and there was another seed that was planted during her time at Corpus Christi, and that was this idea of becoming a hitting coach. Rachel has always spoken that one of her most dear mentors was this fellow named Dylan Lawson, who was a hitting coach with the Astros at the time. And he's the one that really took her under his wing and started introducing her to the finer points of hitting. And it was then that Rachel decided, okay, now I want to be a hitting coach. Rachel left the Houston Astros in 2018 and enrolled at Vrije University in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. This would be her second master's degree, and she would be studying biomechanics. During her time there, she became a hitting apprentice for the Netherlands national baseball and softball team. Now, her thesis statement was on eye tracking in hitters and the mechanisms of the brain and cognitive function during hitting, which goes right over my head. So she conducted her research for her thesis at this place called Driveline Baseball in Kent, Washington, which, for those who are unfamiliar, Driveline Baseball is the data hub when it comes to all things analytics. So it was the perfect place for Rachel to conduct her thesis research. She would end up graduating from Berea University in 2019. Now, on November 22nd, 2019, the New York Yankees hired Rachel and made her the first female hitting coach in professional baseball history. She would spend the next 3 years roaming around Florida, working with the different minor league teams and players, and even spent some time in Latin America working with the players over there. 2 years after that, in 2021, she would become the first female coach in the All-Star Futures game. And now, after the game finished, the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York, called Rachel. And they said, hey, can we have that hat that you wore during the game? So sure enough, the next day, her hat was on its way to Cooperstown, where it's currently on display in the museum for the public viewing. Now, on January 9th, 2022, the sports community woke up to earth-shattering news. The Yankees had promoted Rachel Balkovec, and she was now the low affiliate manager of the Tampa Tarpons. Not only was this a remarkable and earth-shattering day in professional baseball, but in all sports. And it's a day many of us will always remember and never forget. Now, Rachel made her debut on April 8th, which was a Friday. And before the game, the crowd was chanting, "Let's go, Rachel. Let's go, Rachel." Everybody in the stands had goosebumps. Now, Rachel's team won the game that night, but everybody was well aware that the game meant so much more than just the score. It was a game that transcends just the boundary of professional baseball. It was a game that will forever be remembered. Now, after that game, the Hall of Fame called back and they said, hey, can we have your hat and your jersey? So the next day, the hat and the jersey from her managerial debut, they were sent on their way to Cooperstown, where they are also on display for the public viewing in the museum. Now, one more first that Rachel is responsible for that happened this past summer. She is now the first female manager to ever be ejected from a professional baseball game. It was late in the game, and she and the umpire, who was also a female, got into a dispute about a call on first base. And sure enough, the umpire threw her out of the game, and she was fined an undisclosed amount. But I guess that's just part of the game. Now, the goal has always been to be a general manager. Even when she started in the league as an intern all those years ago, the goal had always remained the same. Rachel wants to be a general manager. And she told me not too long ago that she believes managing a team is the right step in that direction. And it goes without saying that Rachel's influence and willingness to help others extends far beyond the baseball field. During the height of the pandemic, she created this GoFundMe page called Humans for Humans. And the goal was to raise money and then distribute it to a different charity every week. Now, for media organizations who wanted to interview Rachel during that time, in order for Rachel to do the interview, the media organization, would have to donate to the Humans for Humans campaign. Certainly, I had to donate a couple times. She got me a couple times, but of course, I was happy to donate. And when it was all said and done, she raised over $6,000 that was donated to charity. The last note on this slide is you can see the hat that was worn during the All-Star game, the Future Stars game, that's currently on display in Cooperstown. And here is the jersey she wore during her managerial debut, which is also on display in Cooperstown. Now, this is the last slide. And if there is one thing that I would love for you to take away from my presentation today, it's this. Rachel will be the first to admit that she is a daughter, sister, student, feminist, nomad, role model, and mentor first, and a hitting coach and manager second. Her greatest concern lies not in, did I help this player improve his batting average? Did I get more wins in the win column? Her greatest concern lies in, did I make this player grow into a better father, a better husband, a better son, a better brother, a better boyfriend? Did I make an impact on how dads view their daughters? How did I positively impact the community and humanity as a whole? That's what matters to her. That's what makes her happy. And her influence transcends the realm of baseball. She has and continues to establish a profound legacy that I'm confident will inspire many generations to come, just as how she has deeply inspired me. Thank you.
Thanks, Barrett. Does anybody have any questions? If so, you can drop them in the chat. I think everybody is just talking about how great of a presentation that was. That was so awesome. Thank you so much. I do want to remind everybody, if you put any sources or any books or anything in the chat, we are taking note of that to turn into a bibliography at the end.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, it more than anything, it's a comment. Barrett, that was fantastic. And I would not have known that that was your first presentation. You did a great job. And most importantly, I learned a lot about a young woman that I thought I kind of knew, right? Not personally, but through baseball. So I just want to thank you. And I have always admired Rachel, but I am fonder of her now than I was. And so thank you for that. My question is, what's next, Barrett? What are you thinking of doing with this information?
So it's a great question, and thank you so much for your sweet words and your sweet compliments. And all the comments in the chat. Thank you so much. If I wasn't on camera, I'd probably start crying right now because of how sweet you all are. So thank you. So I've been in contact with a couple people at the SABR about, they have a and Jessica, please feel free to clarify in case I get this wrong. There's a magazine that comes out maybe twice a year, I believe. So I've been working diligently on a research paper on Rachel. There's certainly no shortage of articles and interviews about her all over the internet. However, I don't think anyone's really put together a full historical account of her that can be found in one setting. As I tried to do in my presentation, I tried to cover from the day she was born until today. So I've been working diligently on that. It has over 100 references thus far, and I'm drawing from my own conversations with her, information that otherwise would not have been made public. So that is the ultimate goal, to create this all-encompassing research paper on her that really hasn't been done before. And who knows, I know certain presidents have like their own autobiographers and stuff like that. So it would be pretty neat if I end up being her official biographer one day. That'd be really neat. But at this point, it's just been such an honor to follow her career, to speak to her and speak on her behalf. And I just look forward to to many wonderful things ahead for her. And I'm just trying to do my part to spread her message and make sure she gets the recognition she deserves. But thank you, Kat. It's a great question, and thank you again for the heartfelt compliments, all of you. Thank you so much.
Leslie asked in the chat if you have ever got to see her manage in person.
So I would, unfortunately, no. I've spoken to her via email multiple times, and I've spoken to her on the phone a handful of times, but I have never met her in person. That is the top of my bucket list. I think that if there was one person that I could choose to meet, it would be her. So that is definitely on my bucket list. I used to live in Florida too. I lived in Florida for about 8 years in Tampa. So we just missed each other. So that was unfortunate, but that is definitely a goal of getting to see her at some point. So, and of course, seeing her manage would be an awe-inspiring opportunity. So yeah.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, but if you want to answer any later, if you want to drop maybe your email or anything in the chat so people can contact you. Oh, Michael asked, how have the players reacted?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, Michael. Thank you for that. And I'll try to make this quick because there's a lot I could say about that. When she first got hired by the Cardinals back in 2012 as the intern, and then the coordinator in 2014, there was a lot of questions from outside the organization. How is a female going to operate in the locker room with all these young testosterone-filled men? And one of the questions she would always get is, do you get hit on by men? Do they make inappropriate comments? And believe it or not, speaking to Rachel and other people I've known in the industry, that has not been the case at all, somewhat surprisingly. The players have and the coaches have respected her to the fullest. There's been no sort of inappropriate remarks. They've really respected her for her journey, her knowledge, what she brings to the table. And I mentioned in my presentation that a lot of players started viewing her as a mother and a sister figure. And that was actually a quote from some players. That wasn't just me making it up. And again, she's really earned the respect of so many, again, as a intellectual and a coach, not a potential date or a beautiful woman or something like that. But again, I was surprised. And I'm sure many people were. You would thought that here's this extraordinary woman working in baseball. A lot of men would want to go out with her, but that was never the case. I never heard of any problems in the locker room, which is a testament to the respect that Rachel garnered from these young men. So.
Great. It is 11:30, so I think we're gonna move on. Thank you so much, Barrett. I think I speak for everyone. We can't wait to read your article when it comes out in the Baseball Research Journal. Thanks so much.
Thank you.